Today is the 28th anniversary to the day. November 14th, 1993 was the first service at Columbine. And to be standing here and be able to be the minister today is interesting how it all is always serendipity. Because I was supposed to speak last week, and because I committed to another church once a month, it moved to this week, and I thought, this couldn't be more perfect. It couldn't be more perfect to be here in front of you today. So I wanted to talk about the anniversary, and I wanted to talk about divine spark. That this place, this gratitude that we have for being here today, the gratefulness that we get to discuss, the fact that this is November, that this is the month of Thanksgiving, is a miracle. That we are in this gorgeous building with all these incredible people. And it started from divine spark. It started from the knowing that we are conduits of God. That we are here as vibrations, as energy, and as light, and as of love. And that when we listen to the whispers, when we listen to sometimes the screams that are coming to us, divine spark comes and guides us and moves to great things, not only in our personal lives, but in the grander scale of this community that has been strong and passionate for 28 years, providing personal transformation. And it started because there was a group of people who went to Boulder Unity, which is a fantastic Unity church across town. If you haven't been there, it's a great Unity church across town. And there was something that was pulling people, and it was in different groups. It wasn't just one person. There was a feeling that was happening, that there was something more that people wanted, that there was something different, that the source, the spirit was calling them in different ways, in new ways. And in 1992, Pat Foss, who is continued to be the foundation, and you'll hear the story now, but she was already really involved at Boulder Unity in service. And she was diagnosed with breast cancer. It's a major diagnosis. And so she took a step back and really evaluated her life and said, who am I, and what is filling me up, and where am I feeling stressed, and how am I going to heal? And she is a Unity practitioner, and she knew that she needed to come into prayer. And what she knew is she needed to step back from stress. And it turned out church was stressful for her. So she stepped back from that community. And there were other things happening already. The energy, manifestation, that divine spark is an energy that's flowing. It's a vibration. And she thought to herself, what am I going to do to heal when I don't have a church? I don't have a minister. I don't have someone to lead me. So she called Colleen Jane and said, Colleen, what do you think about starting another church? And the story is Colleen, without a hesitation or without a beat, said, yes, let's do it. Colleen, can you stand up and pat Foss? They could feel that divine spark. If they had known in that conversation the literally thousands of hours they would take of their lives to create this community, we get a divine spark, and so many people get stopped. They want certainty. They want to know. They want to be sure that this is going to do something. Well, what will that look like, and how will we do it, and how will it progress, and what if we do this, and what if it's hard, and who will show up? And I think that first initial spark came to Colleen and Pat because they are two of the most humble, kind, serving people I've ever met. And Colleen's husband, George, is a big piece of this because she doesn't do anything without George. And they are united, and just like Pat didn't do it without her husband, Tom. But it's not about the two of them, actually. It's not about any of the players in the story in their ego sense, in their personalities. This is about divinity moving through people, working through people, that they were willing to step out in faith. Long before we had this building, they had started by that little spark. And then that little spark led to a conversation. You know how you have a conversation with somebody and you don't really know how that's going to happen? So they have a conversation with Glenn Winterstrom about, well, what if we started a church? Well, Glenn had been in this men's group with Dave Brown and had somebody in the group named Ed who was a minister. And boom, it's on. The momentum is happening. They started meeting in homes. They started using the mastermind prayer. They started using prayer and motivation and doing single steps. They weren't thinking 28 years down the road. They were thinking this week, next week, what are we going to do this week? What are we going to do next week? And they could feel that momentum, and people started gathering. And then they needed a nonprofit status, because at that time you couldn't have a Unity Church within 5 miles of another Unity Church, and there was already a Unity Church. So they thought, we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to keep moving forward. We have faith. And so they started meeting in homes, and then they had that nonprofit status that allowed them to rent the Bridge School. No, not the Bridge School yet, Southern Hills Middle School. And they went for the first time at Southern Hills Middle School on November 14th, 1993, on a snowy day. And it was old days back then. It wasn't like you put like a Facebook post up. They were on the phone. Remember we put an ad in the paper, and you used to go look through the Boulder camera and say, this is what I'm going to do. They put an ad in the paper, they called people, they sent out postcards. 100 people showed up on that first day. That's about what we have here today. 100 people and a dozen kids. And the school-age kids were in the cafeteria with a quilt here and a quilt here, a quilt here. Each quilt represented a different age group. If you were here, if you attended Columbine in that first Bridge School, please stand up. Southern Hills, at Southern Hills, please stand up. There was a momentum going, and Ed was part of that momentum, and he and his wife and this group, those people that stood up and the people that went with it, they just started stepping out in faith. They started stepping out in faith, and then Ed left. And as it is in real life, there's trials. You have to be willing to just keep going. You just keep going, you keep going. And in that meantime, there was guest speakers, and some of those guest speakers was a new minister known as Reverend Scott Shell, was one of those guest speakers. And then they hired a woman named Marjorie Carroll, who was a minister there for about 9 years. And she had some accreditation with the Unity Church, and she got in there. They changed the rule. You could have a Unity Church, another Unity Church within 5 miles. That didn't only affect us, that affected everybody. That was a benefit to anybody who wanted to share the Unity message. And then they needed to grow, so they wanted to move to a different place, but there was this fear of staying constricted. That there was a vision, there was a movement to move forward, to do something bigger. Well, it seems like a lot to buy land and have a building. Can't we just do church out of a box? It's not so hard to pack up your car every Sunday, have your volunteers that put the boxes out, get the tables out, the little purple chairs for the kids, the signs, it was a lot of work. And Pat and Colleen have a little story about how they would look at each other, and the look that they had said, oh, someday we're going to have our own building. Someday. It's going to be so great. And that vision, the momentum, that spark that said, this isn't enough to just be church in a box. There needs to be something else. And so they bought this land. And it was a miracle how they found and bought the land, as it always is. They'd been looking, and then you talk to a person who has a piece of land, and they were able to purchase this land. They purchased this land on the same day that they signed to have the school at the Bridge School. Well, it was the 7th anniversary at the Bridge School that Rich and I walked in. And we had been church shopping, and we had gone to the other Unity Church, and the first time I heard from somebody that there was another Unity Church, we were there that Sunday. And the story is that Rich and I are listening, and they're talking about someday they're going to build a building, that we have this land, and someday we're going to build this building, and what does that look like? And George Jane had started the building fund with $1 because he was stepping out in faith. They said that fund was $1.11 for a long time. And they were visioning, they were having that divine spark, was pushing for them. So they were literally talking about what they were going to do. And my husband stood up. This is my memory, and I'm going to keep it because it might not be totally right. But my memory is that my husband stood up in this congregation and said, "My name is Rich Harrison. I'm a stonemason, and I will help you build that church." And he did. And we knew from the minute that we walked in Columbine that we were home. We were welcomed with the kindness that welcomes everybody here today. And what I think about so often is that, again, it's not the personalities, it's not who did this or who was responsible for that, but that each and every person was listening to the divine spark. Each and every person was willing to step out in faith. Each and every person was willing to step in and do what their talent was. We had Christy Coates was the music person and led the choir. And she nudged me and said, "You sing those joy songs really good. You should come sing with us." That's how I started to sing. She gave me a solo. She let me have a voice. Jareen Anderson played piano. We used to sing out of the Wings of Songbook. And we were not very good. But we did it. Whoever wanted to could be the song leader. And we had time to honor the children that was created by Colleen, where all the kids would come up on the stage and she would tell them a story, and we would say an affirmation and chant them out with an affirmation. Those were my kids. My kids were, talk about my kids, this made me cry. 2 and 4 when we came to Columbine. And they would go off into their classrooms. It was profound. It was small. And I think some of us have struggled with the change from having a small congregation where you literally knew every single person. You knew every single person's name. And if you didn't show up on a Sunday, they knew that you didn't show up. And again, it wasn't like you could see on Facebook that they're traveling. You know, they called you and said, "How are you doing?" It was a profound time, and yet we knew that there was a spark, there was something else, and it was time to start building the building. And Marjorie retired, and we needed a new minister. And we interviewed, I think 4 or 5 ministers. I felt so lucky to be on that team to help pick Scott Shell. And he was great. And he brought vitality, and he brought so much joy to us, and we had so much fun with him. He is funny and fun. And we'd have our fundraisers. They were so homey, and I think about how we would have the tables that we did, the auctions were services and things that people had made, or things that were still really good, but they weren't using. I got a really good vacuum one year. I learned how to play guitar. Bill did astrology readings for me. Bill Baker told me I was going to be a minister someday. Yeah, you are. So we had this connection. Oh, I forgot. The people that were cooking were our people. They were doing shots of tequila in the back. The youth was serving us the food. It was our own bands that played. And it was time to move forward. It was time to start building. It was time to start dreaming of something bigger. And it happened. And the story is that Bob Anderson and other people, Bill Holmes, were like imperative on helping us be able to figure out how we were going to finance it. How are we going to get the mortgage for it? How are we going to do this? It felt so big. But we just kept stepping out in faith one step at a time. One step at a time. Can I get this slide of the groundbreaking? Yes, there's our founders, some of our founders. And I say some of because I know that the personalities are not what's important. What I know is that the people who listened to that divine spark are the ones who were willing to step out in faith. And anybody who was part of that beginning, anybody who was part of that momentum, anybody who was part of that energy counts. But you have Tom and Pat Foss, Glenn Winterstrom, George Colleen Jane, and Glenda and Bill Holmes. And one of the reasons I think it's important to start to be aware of that is new people come in and you take it for granted that like this has just been like this forever. We are an anthill people. It is not one ant that makes the whole thing happen. It takes every single one of us. It takes every single person that wakes up on a Sunday morning and feels that divine energy that says, I want to go get something today. I want to get it. I want to come in. I'm going to tune in. I'm going to watch it. I see you out there watching it. I feel you. It's people who come in later. When they drive by, the energy they feel from this church counts. It counts, the love, the connection. And people come and go. People come and go. And this is what I love about Unity, what I love about this spiritual center, is that people don't come here because they feel they have to. People come here because there's a choice to come here. People come here because they receive something. People come here because it fills them up. And that energy, that vibration that we're on, has a symbioticness. It has a connection. Some people can't get there yet. Some people come and it's not quite for them. That's okay. Some people get what they need and they get filled up and they move on to something else. That's okay. Some people come, they leave, they come back. Awesome. It's all perfect. It's all perfect. Nobody is here because they have to be. We want you to be here because you want to be. And so as the years have gone by, every single person that comes in, even on one Sunday, you are essential to this spiritual center. You are part of what makes this work. You are connecting to that vibration, that divine spark that created the beginning of this and continues the energy every day. If you don't come, if you don't volunteer, if you don't donate, done. But that's not what happens here. You can feel it. The energy never stops going. So we are building this building. And what I loved about what happened when we first built the building was because we were on a shoestring budget, we helped build the building. Every weekend, people were here working. It wasn't like you put up a bunch of money. So this is 2005, and the building's built. This is my son's birthday. And I remember it was September 11th, and there I am talking. Isn't that funny? I found this picture in all the pictures. Here's Rich in the front row. And we stood here, and we would meet, and we would bring our chairs, and we had put in the foundation coins and prayers. And we wrote all over this subfloor all kinds of beautiful things. And we just couldn't wait to get in the building. And I was thinking today about the flies, how I think the flies that are in here are the descendants of those flies. You should have seen it before. We're by a horse pasture. I swear these are the descendants of the flies from back when it was open. If you attended this church and were part of the people that helped build this church and worked on the weekends during that time period, please stand up. love that there's so many of us that have stuck around, that have made it through, because this is a long relationship. This is like marriage or family, right? Like, it is not always easy. And we're in a place right now where it's not easy. You know, Scott came. We are so blessed to have Sue, who came I tried to do the math, 7-ish years ago. And I remember when Sue and Scott came in, and the energy, that vibration, you could feel that they were supposed to be here. And the divine spark that told them, we need to move into modern times. We need live stream. And some of us were like, what? What's that? Don't they want to come in? What I heard over and over from Colleen and Pat when we were talking was the letting go of what you think was supposed to happen. The letting go of what you believe was your idea of how this was going to go. When they had that divine spark 28 years ago, they allowed it to move through them. And they have let go of it all these years, just like all the people who have been here a long time. Moving forward, allowing for change, allowing for the complexities, willing to give up our personalities, willing to give up our egos, willing to step back and remember, this is holy ground. This is God's church. This is not one ant. This is all of us beings who do it together. And each of us are so important. And as we move into this new phase, the pandemic has changed everything. It has turned the world on its side. And some of that's amazing, that we have new values, new ways of seeing things, new perspective. And it's hard on things like churches, where we needed people just to come because it's Sunday morning and you get up and you go to church. We want you to be here because you love it. We want you to attend online because you love it. We want to bring this message not just to the 20-mile radius of people who can drive here on a Sunday. We want to bring this message, this new thought message, this manifestation, this metaphysics, unity to the world. And it looks different. It looks different than anything it ever has before. And so if you've come here today, this is your first time, or you're still new, you are as valuable and as important here as the people who have been here for 28 years, 125 million%. We love you. And so it can feel like you're stepping into an already existing anthill. Oh, no. No. Come to me. I'm the Director of Community Care. I'll help you find your little space in the anthill. We're moving into this new strategic plan. We're moving into a new place where Scott's going to retire. We're moving into a place where we are at a crossroads as an organization, as a spiritual center. That means that everybody in our holy ground needs to get involved. Just like when we were starting. Just like 28 years ago, when every single person had their talent and had their gift, and we needed every single one of you. We need every single one of you today. The divine spark can come through us in our lives, and we can push it down, or we can be part of something greater. We can be of service. We can step out of our personalities. We can step out of our comfort zones. We can step out of what is normal or comfortable or easy, just like our founders did. And say, I have a dream for something bigger. And I can't wait to see what happens from the strategic plan. I can't wait to see what happens with Columbine. I can't wait to see what the energy that's flowing through us creates and brings out into the world. And 10 years from now, we'll look back and say, oh, that musical meditation service that that Janice and Rachel are doing on Thursday nights, next Thursday night. Who would have known that would have been an alternative service that would have spoken to so many people? We're trying new things. We're doing new things. So when you get caught up in the this is how we used to do it, and this is what I like, and this is what felt comfortable to me, think about those founders that have let go of what was comfortable to them all those years ago and were willing to continue all the time to step out in faith. The quote that, there's two quotes, which I missed both of them. One of them I love that Colleen gave me was Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity. Everything is right here. All that ever was and ever could be, simply waiting to be brought forth in manifestation. Everything is right here. And the divine spark is flowing through each and every single one of us. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being part of Columbine. Thank you for being of our hearts. We're so, so grateful that you're part of our community, and we can't wait to see what happens. Happy anniversary, Columbine.